Red Bull did not just get shaken by a Verstappen accident. They got shown something far more dangerous. Because when Max Verstappen loses control, the easy excuse is always driver error. He pushed too hard. He went too close to the limit. He asked too much from the car. But what if the accident was not the real problem? What if it was the first moment the problem became impossible to hide? The source material points to a Verstappen crash described as very weird, an investigation involving Max, and growing attention around his long-term Red Bull decision for 2027. That combination matters, because one strange accident can disappear, but a pattern around the car, the pressure, and the future of the team cannot be ignored. And here is the shocking part. Red Bull's biggest weakness may not be speed. It may be trust. Trust in the car. Trust in the limit. Trust that Verstappen is not being forced to make an unstable machine look normal every single weekend. Because if Max is the only reason Red Bull still looks in control, then the accident did not create the crisis. It exposed it. Subscribe to the channel. The first layer is the one Red Bull would rather keep quiet. Not because it proves a scandal. Not because it confirms a single broken part. But because it forces everyone to ask the question that dominant teams hate most. What if the car has been less comfortable than the results made it look? That is the danger of having Max Verstappen. He is so good, so aggressive, so exact, that he can cover problems other drivers would expose immediately. He can take a car that feels nervous and still drag it toward the front. He can feel the rear moving and somehow make it part of the lap. He can drive through instability in a way that makes the whole package look healthier than it really is. And for a while, that looks like strength. Until it becomes a trap. Because if one driver keeps saving the car, the team can start believing the car does not need saving. That is where Red Bull's problem becomes complicated. A weird crash is not just a weird crash when it happens to Verstappen. It is a signal. Because Max usually gives the impression that he knows exactly where the edge is. He does not look like a driver searching for confidence. He looks like a driver who owns the limit, who can step over it, bring the car back, and make everyone else wonder how he survived the corner. So when the car suddenly does something that looks strange, people notice. They notice because it does not fit the usual Verstappen picture. And that is why the accident matters. Not as proof of one technical failure, but as a crack in the idea that Red Bull still has everything under control. The source material does not give us an official Red Bull explanation. It does not provide a confirmed technical cause. It does not say the team found one exact broken component, one illegal setting, or one clear failure that explains everything. But it does point to a Verstappen crash described as very weird, and that phrase is important. Because in Formula 1, weird usually means the first answer was not enough. If a driver simply locks up, everyone understands. If a car snaps because the tires are cold, that can be explained. If wind hits at the wrong moment, the team can talk about conditions. But when something feels weird, the question stays open. And open questions are dangerous for a team like Red Bull. Because they invite people to look deeper. At the balance. At the setup direction. At whether the car is giving Verstappen the same warning signs it used to give him. At whether Max is still attacking from confidence, or attacking because he has no other choice. That difference is everything. A confident driver pushes because the car is talking to him. A desperate driver pushes because the stopwatch demands it. From the outside, both can look brave. Inside the cockpit, they feel completely different. Think of it like running across a bridge. If the bridge feels solid, you sprint. You trust your feet. You do not question every step. But if the bridge moves underneath you, even slightly, your body changes. You still might keep running, especially if everyone is chasing you, but now each step carries doubt. That is what Red Bull have to understand. Not whether Verstappen can handle pressure. He clearly can. The question is whether the car is giving him a stable enough platform to use his talent without turning every lap into a rescue mission. And that is where the real problem may begin. Because Red Bull's greatest strength in recent years was not just building fast cars. It was building cars that Verstappen could dominate with. There is a difference. A fast car gives lap time. A Verstappen car gives him a weapon. It lets him brake late, attack the entry, rotate the car sharply, and trust that the rear will not punish him before he can catch it. When that connection works, Max looks almost unfair. He does not just drive the car. He bends the race around it. But if that connection weakens, even a little, Red Bull's entire advantage becomes more fragile. Because Verstappen's style needs a car that responds instantly. Not gently. Not safely. Instantly. He wants the front to bite. He wants the rear to follow. He wants the limit to be sharp, but readable. He can live with a car that is difficult. What he cannot live with is a car that lies. And that may be the hidden fear after the accident. Not that the car is slow. That would be easier to understand. The bigger fear is that the car is unpredictable. A slow car is a problem. An unpredictable car is a warning. Because when a driver does not know exactly what the car will do at the limit becomes a moving target. One lap it is there. The next lap it is somewhere else. And at Verstappen's speed, that is enough to turn control into chaos. This is where Red Bull's internal investigation would become more than data. It becomes trust repair. Engineers can look at throttle traces, steering inputs, brake pressure, tire temperature, balance changes, wind sensitivity, and setup choices. But underneath all those numbers is one human question. Did the car tell Max the truth before it let go? If the answer is yes, then maybe it was just one strange moment. If the answer is no, then Red Bull have a much deeper issue. Because once a driver stops fully trusting the information coming from the car, everything gets harder. Qualifying gets harder. Starts get harder. Race management gets harder. Tire saving gets harder. Defending gets harder. Even attacking gets harder, because the driver has to leave a margin where he used to carry speed. And Verstappen is not built to leave unnecessary margin. That is not how he became Verstappen. He became Verstappen by living in the space where other drivers start backing out. So if Red Bull give him a car that demands caution, they are not just slowing a lap. They are limiting the very thing that makes him special. That is why this issue is bigger than one accident. Because Red Bull can survive a crash. They can survive a bad session. They can survive an investigation. What they cannot afford is a car that starts taking away Max's certainty. And certainty is the most valuable thing a top driver can have. Not comfort. Not ease. Certainty. The knowledge that when he turns in, the car will answer. When he brakes late, the rear will not vanish. When he commits through a fast corner, the grip will not disappear without warning. That certainty is invisible when everything is going well. Nobody talks about it. Nobody celebrates it. But when it disappears, everyone sees the consequences. A snap. A correction. A missed apex. A strange accident. A driver shaking his head because the car did something he did not expect. And that is why Red Bull's first real problem may have been hidden by success. The results made the car look manageable. Verstappen made the balance look survivable. The team's reputation made every issue feel temporary. But Formula One does not care about reputation when the car reaches the edge. At the edge, there is only truth. Either the car holds, or it does not. Either the driver trusts it, or he hesitates. Either the team understands the warning, or the warning returns in a worse form. And that is the pressure building around Red Bull now. Because the source material also points toward attention around Verstappen's future decision for 2027. That detail changes the emotional weight of everything. If a strange crash happens while the driver's future is completely calm, the story can fade. But when people are already discussing timelines, choices, and long-term commitment, every technical issue becomes part of a bigger question. Is Red Bull still the right place for Max Verstappen's prime years? That is not a small question. That is the kind of question that can shake a team even if nobody says it loudly. Because Verstappen does not need promises. He needs proof. Proof that Red Bull know what is wrong. Proof that the car is moving in the right direction. Proof that the team is not relying on him to cover weaknesses that should have been solved at the factory. And that is where the accident becomes symbolic. Not because it tells the whole story. Because it gives the story a visible image. The car out of control. The champion confused. The team searching. The rivals watching. That image is powerful because it breaks the old Red Bull illusion. The illusion that Max and the car are always one step ahead. The illusion that every problem has already been solved before anyone outside notices. The illusion that Red Bull's control is permanent. But no control is permanent in Formula One. Dominance is always temporary. It only lasts as long as the car, the driver, the people, and the direction all stay aligned. And after a strange accident, alignment becomes the word that matters most. Is the car aligned with Verstappen's style? Is the setup aligned with the tire behavior? Is the development path aligned with what Max needs from the front and rear of the car? Is the team aligned around the same explanation? Or are they chasing symptoms while the real issue sits deeper? That is the scary possibility. Because if Red Bull only fix the visible problem, they may miss the cause. They can adjust the setup. They can calm the rear. They can change preparation. They can give Max a more predictable car for one weekend. But if the deeper issue is that the car's working window has become too narrow, then the problem will return. Maybe at a different track. Maybe in different weather. Maybe under different tire conditions. Maybe at the exact moment Verstappen needs to push hardest. And when a car only works in a narrow window, it becomes like a door that opens only when you hit the handle perfectly. Sometimes it feels smooth. Sometimes it jams. And when it jams at Formula One speed, there is no time to ask why. That is why Red Bull have to treat this carefully. They cannot just say, Max is Max, he will handle it. That answer may have worked before. It cannot be the plan forever. Because every champion has a limit to what he can cover. Even Verstappen. Especially Verstappen. Because his driving creates so much performance from the edge that any movement in that edge becomes dangerous. And that brings us to the real meaning of Block 1. Red Bull's problem may not be that Verstappen crashed. The problem may be that the crash forced them to look at how much instability he had been absorbing before anyone wanted to call it instability. That is the uncomfortable truth. The driver who makes the car look strongest may also be the reason the weakness stayed hidden for so long. And once Red Bull begin to see it that way, the next question becomes even more serious. If Verstappen has been covering the problem, who inside Red Bull is brave enough to admit the car was never as secure as it looked? Then comes the part Red Bull cannot solve with confidence alone. Because once a strange accident happens, the team has to decide what kind of problem it is actually facing. Is it a driver problem? Is it a car problem? Is it a setup problem? Or is it something more dangerous, a problem created by the relationship between Max Verstappen and the machine underneath him? That relationship is the whole story. Because Red Bull's advantage has never been just one thing. It has never been only engine power, or only aerodynamics, or only strategy, or only Verstappen's talent. It has been the connection between all of it. The car gives Max a platform. Max gives the car something extra. The engineers build around what he can feel. The team reacts to what he reports. And when that loop works, Red Bull look untouchable. But when that loop starts to break, even slightly, the same system can become fragile. Because a team built around a driver as extreme as Verstappen has to understand him perfectly. Not generally. Perfectly. He does not drive by asking the car to be gentle. He drives by demanding that it answers instantly. He wants the front end to bite when he turns. He wants the rear to stay alive, but not disappear. He wants a car that rotates fast, gives him freedom, and lets him attack places where other drivers would protect themselves. That is why he can make the impossible look normal. But it also means that if the car changes character without warning, the consequences arrive faster. And this is where the rumor, the conflict, and the pressure begin to connect. Because after a weird accident, every person around Red Bull starts looking at the same moment from a different angle. The engineers look at the data. The driver feels the memory. The rivals look for weakness. The media looks for meaning. And the fans look for the first sign that the Red Bull empire might be losing control. That is not just noise. That is pressure. The kind of pressure that changes how every detail is interpreted. If Verstappen says the car felt strange, people hear alarm bells. If Red Bull say they are investigating, people hear uncertainty. If the team gives no clear answer, people imagine something worse. If future decisions are already being discussed, suddenly one accident becomes part of a much larger question. And that question is simple. Can Red Bull still give Max Verstappen the kind of car that makes him believe? Because belief is not the same as loyalty. Loyalty can be spoken. Belief has to be felt at 200 miles per hour. A driver can say he trusts the team. He can say the right things in interviews. He can sit through meetings, listen to explanations, and accept that difficult weekends happen. But the real truth comes at corner entry. When the brake pedal goes down. When the steering wheel turns. When the car begins to rotate. When the driver has to decide whether to commit fully, or leave a tiny margin because something inside him does not trust the rear. That tiny margin can destroy a lap. And for Verstappen, that matters even more. Because his genius lives in the place where tiny margins disappear. He makes time by committing earlier, harder, and with more confidence than others. He does not wait for the car to be comfortable. He forces the car to follow him. But that only works when the limit is clear.